It was the only sound that dared rise above the noon heat, a dry, fibrous groan stretching across the town square like a warning. Dust hung unmoving in the air, suspended in the kind of stillness that made a man aware of his own breathing. A circle had formed: boots, skirts, spurs, silence. Elias Crow stood at the far edge of it, just beyond the shadow of the general store awning. He didn't lean. He didn't shift. He simply watched. The man at the gallows had already stopped pleading. Sheriff Haverton wiped sweat from his temple with a handkerchief that had long ago given up being white. He had a way of holding himself that made authority look like something inherited rather than earned, chin high, shoulders back, voice already prepared to outlast argument. "Ezekiel Boone," he said, loud enough for the crowd but not loud enough to disturb the moment. "Convicted of horse theft and resisting arrest. Sentenced to be carried out. He didn't do it." The voice came from somewhere low, strained thin by fear. Heads turned. The crowd parted just enough to reveal her. She stood with her hands clenched into the fabric of her dress, knuckles pale against sunburned skin. Her hair had come loose from whatever pins once held it in place, strands clinging to her cheeks. "Sheriff," she said again, quieter now. "Please." Haverton didn't look at her right away. When he did, it wasn't with anger. It was worse than that. It was dismissal. "You'll have your turn, Miss Calder," he said. "Same as anyone." "I won't," she said. "Not after this." A murmur rippled through the crowd, uncertain and brief. Elias shifted his weight then, just once. Not enough for anyone to notice unless they were looking for it. He wasn't. Not at first. The sheriff gave a small nod. The kind meant to signal that something inconvenient had been acknowledged and would now be ignored. The lever was pulled. The rope snapped tight. And the silence broke, not loudly, not with cries, but with a kind of inward collapse. A collective retreat. Elias watched until the man stopped moving. Then he turned away before anyone else did. The saloon smelled of stale whiskey and damp wood, the kind of scent that settled into a man's clothes whether he drank or not. A piano in the corner struck a hesitant chord, then another, like it wasn't sure if it wanted to be heard. Elias sat at the bar with his hat pulled low, a glass untouched in front of him. He traced the rim with a finger that bore a faint scar across the knuckle. "You planning on drinking that," the barkeep said, "or just making it nervous?" Elias didn't look up. "Just sitting with it." The barkeep shrugged, wiped a spot that didn't need wiping. The doors swung open behind him. The room shifted, not visibly, not dramatically, but in the way conversation thins when something unwelcome enters. She stepped in like she wasn't sure the floor would hold her. Same dress. Same hands. Still clenched. "Miss Calder." Elias saw her reflection in the mirror behind the bar before he turned. Her eyes moved across the room, searching, not for help exactly, but for something less hostile than the square had been. She found nothing. She moved anyway, threading between tables until she reached the far end of the bar. She didn't sit. "Whiskey," she said. Her voice cracked on the second syllable. The barkeep poured it without comment. She stared at the glass for a long moment before touching it, like it might burn her. Elias lifted his own, took a slow drink. "You shouldn't be here," he said, not unkindly. She didn't look at him. "I shouldn't be anywhere, from what I'm told." "That ain't what I meant." She laughed then, but there was no humor in it. Just air. "They're selling me tomorrow," she said. The piano stopped. Elias turned his head slightly. "Selling," he repeated. She nodded, finally meeting his gaze. There was something steady in her eyes now, not strength exactly, but the absence of anything left to lose. "Debt," she said. "My father's. Sheriff says it's lawful." Auction at noon. Elias let that settle between them. Outside, a wagon rolled past, wheels grinding against dry earth. "And you?" she asked. "You just passing through?" "Something like that." She studied him for a moment longer, as if trying to decide whether he was worth the effort of another sentence. "You watched him hang," she said. "You didn't say anything." "No." "Why not?" Elias looked down at his glass. "Didn't think it would change anything." She nodded slowly, as if that answer confirmed something she already knew. "It never does," she said. She turned then, leaving the whiskey untouched, and walked back out into the heat. Elias finished his drink. The ranch lay just beyond the edge of town, where the dust gave way to scrub and the horizon stretched without interruption. A fence leaned more than it stood, posts worn soft by years of weather and neglect. Elias approached on foot. Two men sat on the porch, boots propped on the railing, rifles within reach but not in hand. They watched him come with the casual suspicion of men who believed themselves unchallenged. "You lost?" one of them called. Elias stopped a few yards short of the steps. "No." "Then you're trespassing." "Maybe." The second man stood, slower, measuring. "This ain't town," he said. "Sheriff don't care much for strangers out here." "I ain't here for him." A pause. "Then, what are you here for?" Elias reached into his coat. Both men stiffened. He drew out a folded paper. "Bill of sale," he said, holding it up. "For Miss Calder." The first man laughed. "Auction's tomorrow." "I know." "Then you're early." Elias stepped forward, placing the paper on the porch rail. The second man picked it up, unfolded it, eyes narrowing as he read. "Where'd you get this?" "Paid for it." "With what?" Elias didn't answer. The man looked up, something shifting behind his gaze, not respect, not yet, but recognition of a kind of seriousness that couldn't be dismissed. "This ain't how it works," he said. "Sheriff runs the sale." "Sheriff's already been paid." The words hung there, heavy and improbable. From inside the house, a chair scraped. Sheriff Haverton stepped out into the doorway, hat in hand. "Well now," he said. "That's an interesting turn." He looked from the paper to Elias, then back again. "I was wondering when you'd make your move," he said. Elias felt the weight of those words, though he didn't show it. "You knew me," he said. "Didn't at first," Haverton replied. "But a man doesn't forget a face tied to a story." Elias said nothing. Haverton stepped down onto the porch. "Crow," he said. "Didn't expect to see you this far west." "Didn't expect much of anything," Elias said. The sheriff smiled, thin and practiced. "You always did have a way of arriving where trouble was already waiting." Elias met his gaze. "Or where it was being made." The men on the porch shifted, uncertain now. Haverton folded the paper, tapped it against his palm. "You think this clears her?" he asked. "I think it should." "And I think," Haverton said, "that debts run deeper than paper." A long silence followed. Wind moved through the dry grass, whispering against the fence. "You hung a man yesterday," Elias said. "Didn't seem too concerned about depth then." Haverton's smile faded. "Careful," he said. Elias took a step closer. "Let her go." The sheriff's hand drifted toward his belt, not fast, not threatening, but deliberate. "You always did believe in simple solutions," he said. "And you always complicated them." Another pause. Then, from inside the house, her voice. "Sheriff?" It was softer now. Smaller. Haverton didn't turn. Elias did. She stood in the doorway, eyes moving between them. "What's happening?" she asked. No one answered. Elias reached for his coat again. This time, when his hand came out, it held something else. A small pouch. He tossed it onto the porch. Coins clinked against wood. "Everything I've got," he said. "And then some." Haverton looked at it, then at Elias. "You'd buy her freedom," he said, "after all this time." Elias didn't respond. The sheriff studied him for a long moment, weighing something invisible. Then he sighed. Not dramatically. Just enough to suggest inconvenience. "Take her," he said. The tension broke like a thread cut clean. The men on the porch stepped back. Miss Calder didn't move at first. Then she did. Slowly. As if each step required permission she wasn't sure she had. She reached Elias, stopping just short of him. "Why?" she asked. Elias looked past her, out toward the open land. "Because someone should have," he said. They left the ranch together. No one followed. At the edge of town, where the road split and the dust thinned into distance, she stopped. "You don't have to come with me," she said. "I know." "Then why are you?" Elias adjusted his hat, squinting into the light. "Figure I've been standing still too long." She considered that. "Where will you go?" He shrugged. "Wherever this road ends." She nodded, a faint smile touching her lips for the first time. "Then I suppose I'll see where it goes too." They stood there a moment longer, the town behind them already beginning to feel like something that had happened to someone else. Then they walked. Side by side. Into the heat, into the quiet, into whatever waited beyond the horizon.